What is the best way to get started with Airbnb? Is it going to be going and buying a house and posting on Airbnb, or using the process of rental arbitrage, taking and renting that property from the landlord, and with their permission, you take and you post that property on Airbnb? Nowadays, it feels like there's 800 different ways to get started with Airbnb, but we're really going to talk about these two because these are the two most common, and so that you can kind of figure out what is going to be the best way for yourself to get started with Airbnb. I'm not here to sway you one way or another. I just want you to be able to make the best decision for yourself so that as you go through your Airbnb journey as an Airbnb host, you can make the best decisions not only for yourself, but best for your guests as well. Because again, that's going to be the forefront of any Airbnb business, is going to be the guest experience. So with that being said, welcome. My name is Dylan. If you're new to the channel, I'm currently an Airbnb host that has 12 different Airbnb properties in my portfolio. I do about $200,000 a year. And I make these videos simply because I'm once a dead broke Airbnb host, and I don't want you to be a dead broke Airbnb host either. So with that being said, let's kind of hop into it and see which is going to be the best path for you when it comes to getting started with Airbnb.
This next part of the video, my handwriting's pretty bad, so I apologize in advance, but it's the best way for me to kind of lay out the options here for you.
All right, so right off the bat here, let's first talk about the startup cost of both rental arbitrage and the startup cost of buying a house, right? So typically in most major US cities in the US, the startup cost for rental arbitrage, you're looking at about $5,000. Now, this $5,000 is going to vary because it is essentially first month's rent, deposit, and then also the furniture. Now, if you're living in a really high-end city, like say a San Francisco or a Chicago or other place where the cost of living is higher, then guess what? Your startup cost is going to be higher because you have a higher cost of living with the rent there in the city. But in most major U.S. cities, you're looking at about $5,000 for the startup for a one-bedroom unit. So this is for one bedroom. So now, when it comes to startup costs, when it comes to buying. Now, typically, let's say you're going to find like a nice place where there's like everything is good with it. You don't have to do any maintenance or like any repairs. Let's say, just to make the math simple, a $200,000 house. So a $200,000 house, you're going to have to put 20% down, usually, if it's an investment property, which means your just like straight out the bat startup cost for this is $40K. Now, this isn't including furniture. So again, this is just for the down payment on the house. Now, there could be other things included, like taxes, insurance, everything that goes into buying a house, right? Closing costs, all that stuff. So, and the furniture. So let's make it an even $50K just to kind of round out some numbers there. So we're looking at about $50K for everything when it comes to the actual startup cost when it comes to buying a house. Now, we'll talk about, I know you people are out there like, well, what about, equity and stuff? We're going to get to that. So now, when it comes to monthly profits on Airbnb, now typically for my one bedrooms, like my monthly profits on average, again, this is average, I'm kind of about $1,200 a month profit on Airbnb. Now, this ranges, I have some one bedrooms that make all the way up to $1,800 a month, and I have some that are, closer to $1,000. It really just kind of ranges based on the season, based on the month, but like, again, yearly average, we're coming out to about $1,200 a month profit on Airbnb. Now, this is essentially going to stay the same when it comes to the monthly profit, but essentially all we're going to switch around is, you're going to be paying less each month for a mortgage than you would be paying for rent, right? So now, every mortgage and every rent is going to be different, but let's say on average, if someone's paying an $800 a month mortgage, they're going to be charging you $1,400 a month for the property. So really, we're just adding, we'll say $600 more a month profit when it comes to buying the house. So let's say that your monthly take home on average, that's supposed to be an 8, I promise, is $1,800 a month, right? So that's pretty good. Now, with the time horizon here for rental arbitrage, we're looking at about, to be honest, it's only like 30 days. Like, it's quick. That's the cool thing about rental arbitrage is it's quick. It's boom, boom, boom. If you've ever signed a lease before for a property, like if you've ever rented a property before, you know what it's like. You pay first month's rent and deposit, and then you sign the lease. There's no extra documents. That's pretty much straightforward how it is. And it's usually about 30 days to kind of get everything in and out. I can usually set up a property. Once I sign the lease and like get the keys, I can usually set up a property within a week. Like maybe depending on the size of it, we're looking at 14 days, but I can just, boom, boom, go in there and get everything ready and then get the pictures and stuff. Now, when it comes to buying, the time horizon, if you've ever bought a house before, it's going to be about 30 to 60 days. Now, this is going to be because everything has to go through escrow and, there's inspections and stuff like that, and then it might fall through. So it's like 30, 60 days on like the really high end, like maybe 90 days, but that's pretty rare. So that's kind of like the three, startup costs, monthly profits, time horizon, setup and stuff like that. Now, with rental arbitrage, when it comes to the pros, obviously for the pros, like it's quick, right? That's quick. So it's quick cash flow, and like you were making money like right away. So quick cash flow. Oh, I broke something. One second. There we go. I'm using like this off-brand Microsoft Paint, and it's not liking my pencil pad. But yeah, so it's quick cash flow with rental arbitrage, so that is a big plus. So quick cash flow. Also, like you can get started really quickly when it comes to just acquiring the properties. Now, some of the pros, obviously, when it comes to buying, for all those who are like, well, what about equity and stuff like that? Yes, of course, you get equity, and like you have full reign over the property, right? So full reign over the property, like you own the property. This is something that if you're doing long-term investing, like like buying is like super beneficial because you're gonna have the property for years. And guess what? If something changes and you don't want to do anymore, guess what? You can just sell the property. So that's an option. So there's all these pros when it comes to it. I think the biggest thing when it comes to buying, right, is that initial startup cost. Like when we're looking at these kind of like apples to apples, like startup costs, you're looking at $5,000. Startup costs when it comes to buying, $50,000. That's 10x. That's 10x like the startup costs, which for a lot of people when they're starting out, like they don't just have 50K starting like sitting around. Lord knows when I first started out, I didn't have 50 grand just sitting around, which is why I got started with rental arbitrage. But again, I'm not trying to sway you either way. I just want to lay out these options because if you have 100 grand capital just sitting around, maybe buying is going to be the better option for you because when it comes to long-term investing, buying probably is the better option here. But again, we're going to keep talking about the pros and the cons. So another pro of rental arbitrage is like when it comes to repairs, like if something breaks in the space, guess what? Like you don't have to fix it. Let's say your heating and cooling goes out. You don't have to pay to fix that. You call maintenance and guess what? They come in and fix the property. And now if it comes to like buying, if you were to go and say buy the property and a week or 2 weeks in to owning the property, the heating and cooling goes out, guess what? That's that's money out of your pocket. That's a couple grand you're gonna have to pay for someone to come in and fix that. So that's kind of the benefit when it comes to it's a big benefit when it comes to rental arbitrage. Now again, when it comes to buying, it's really the long-term investment that is the big benefits here. So it's like if you plan on doing this for years and this is like a long-term thing for you, awesome. And there's also nothing stopping you from getting started with rental arbitrage and then transitioning into buying, right? Because if you can own the properties, one, that's going to make your net worth. So it's like your net worth is not going up when it comes to rental arbitrage. So it's like you're not building equity, you're not building net worth, like you're not building there's no net worth building when it comes to renting, because it's like when you pay rent every month, that's it. Like you pay rent and it's done. But when it comes to buying, it's like you are putting that, you're putting that money towards something. So it's like you're paying down the house versus just paying, rent every single month. So that's a big bonus. It's a huge bonus. And then like, the cons, it's like, again, the main con here is like, high startup cost. I don't feel like writing this because the pen is just awful right now. The main issue is the startup cost. And then when it comes to the repairs and stuff like that, but that is typical. That's typical when you own a house and you plan on doing that. So this is kind of how I lay it out here. Obviously, there's I'm sure there's other little things that people are going to bring up, like, oh, what about this? Oh, what about that? But you might be thinking like, okay, what if I get started with rental arbitrage and let's say that I have the property for 12 months, and then after those 12 months, the landlord just decides, I don't really want to do this anymore. And you're like kind of up a creek without a paddle because you have all this furniture in here, you've been paying on it, and you have these reviews on Airbnb. You've kind of built up this property and these reviews on this Airbnb, right? And it's just kind of then it's all a wash. Well, to that, I would say I've been doing Airbnb rental arbitrage for the past 4 years, and all the landlords, and when I say all the landlords, I mean all the landlords that I've worked with have loved working with me, and they continue to work with me because I'm providing them such a good service, right? They know that their space is going to be clean and in well hands because we clean it like every single week, and they also know that I'm paying rent because I pay rent every single month on time. So it's like they have these. There are benefits. There's more benefits than people might think when it comes to like for a landlord when it comes to renting their property to us to use for Airbnb. Because as long as we're not like having shitty guests that are coming in, which is like there's ways you can guard against and prevent shitty guests from booking your space on Airbnb. That's another video we can talk about in. But yeah, I mean when people are like, oh, after 12 months, then you're kind of at their mercy. But it's like no, like. I love all the landlords I work with, and they love working with me. Now, of course, when you're buying, like, I'm not going to go here, all about buying. Like, people know when it comes to buying, it's like you're paying down a mortgage, and you're getting the equity, you're building, you're having a better long-term investment. Again, like, there's nothing stopping you from getting started with rental arbitrage and then transitioning into buying properties and using them from Airbnb. Because maybe you'll get started with Airbnb, and you're like, man, like, I don't want to do this. Like, this is actually, not for me. This is not what I want to do. And then you're just like, this isn't how I want to, live my life. So it's like, whatever's going to work well for you. So, okay, so I love doing the maths, and I think you guys would enjoy kind of just doing over the numbers here. So you may be closer to financial freedom with Airbnb than you might realize. And for everybody, it's going to be different, right? Like I know for some of you, you're working at a 9 to 5 and maybe you don't like that job. And you're like, okay, like I just want to have more freedom to do whatever the hell I want, right, with my life. And for some of you, you're like, I actually really enjoy my 9 to 5. I would like to stay here, but then just make a little bit more income on the side. So like everybody's Airbnb journey is going to look different. Everybody's, their reason for getting into Airbnb is going to be different. But let's do some fun numbers here to kind of see, how close you are to financial freedom, and you may not even realize it when it comes to doing Airbnb. So with this is going to be this little chart that I put here together. So this is if you're making, there we go. This is if you're making $1,000 a month on Airbnb, and this is going to be for rental arbitrage. So I should specify here, this is with rental arbitrage. So this is with Airbnb rental arbitrage. This is if you're making $1,000 a month. Like I mentioned just prior, one unit in most major U.S. cities is going to cost you about $5,000. And on average, if we take that $1,000 a month times 12 months, we're looking at $12,000 a year, right? Pretty simple math there. Now, when it comes to, as we kind of go through the ladder here, so it's like, 2 units, 3 units, 36,000, 4 units, 48,000, 60,000 for 5, and all the way up to 120 for 10, and just kind of goes from there. Now, for everybody's gonna be different, and I kind of want to preference this here. It's like as you go up this chain, like there's gonna be a little bit more management and a little bit more different ways you're gonna have to automate your business, because this business isn't gonna be 100% automatable. Like I still have to work, and it's like everybody still has to work, but it's like there are ways that you can outsource a lot of the heavy tasks like cleaning and stuff like that. And there's different ways to go about it as you kind of go through this chain here as you grow your Airbnb business. But I find the sweet spot for most individuals that I've worked with is it's 4 units is kind of that sweet spot where you can just kind of manage everything smoothly, and you don't get overwhelmed too easily when it comes to the stuff that kind of goes into it, and you don't have to bring in like all these different operations and stuff. And that brings us in about $48,000 a year. Now, for most people, $48,000 a year, including myself, is a very livable wage, right? Like you can live off that no problemo for most people in the U.S. So it's a pretty sweet spot. And it's like, our total setup costs for 4 units, we're looking at about $20,000, to which we can, we don't have to acquire those all 4 at the same time. We can kind of, acquire them as we go along. Now, if we remember that math from earlier, if we were going to do this and we're going to buy all of those, that is $50K times 4 for like, all the money that would get put into buying all these. That's $200K, right? Now, I'm not saying that's bad. That's, wherever you're at financially, that might be the best benefit for you, because as we just saw the pros and cons before. But your startup costs, if you were going to get 4 of them within this year, say we're going to get 4 properties within this year, that's $200,000. But if you were to get 4 properties within this year, that's just signing leases, and that's $20K. You're looking at about $48,000 a year. Now that's with $1,000 a month, but this is where it really starts to get interesting. Is if we can get those margins just a little bit higher. So if we can get those margins, instead of making $1,000 a month per property, let's say we get that up to $1,500 a month per property. Now that's typically what I make on average for my 2 bedrooms, and a little bit higher when I get into like my 5 bedrooms. Those are like you can make like $8,000 a month on those, which is like bonkers. But again, this is if you were to get your margins up to $1,500 a month on Airbnb, this is kind of the profits in that same module. But for the one property here, we're looking at $18,000 a year profits is what we bring off that one property. And then if we go to 4, we went from $48,000 a year all the way up to $72,000 a year. So it's like you can see here, it's like for the 4 properties here, if your profits and you're bringing $1,000 a month, that's $48,000 a year. Again, plenty of money to live off of, right? That's fantastic. But if you can really get those margins up a little bit higher, you're looking at $72,000 a year off a $20,000 investment. That's pretty damn good. Off the top of my head, I don't know many investments where I can just make triple like right off the bat when it comes to within my first year of a $20,000 investment. So just some food for thought here when it comes to the numbers getting started with Airbnb rental arbitrage as well as buying. And again, like I said earlier, there's nothing stopping you from getting started with rental arbitrage and transitioning into buying once you have a solid cash flow coming in, because it's like all the money that you're making from rental arbitrage, maybe you invest that into buying more properties. I think rental arbitrage is a great way to start and then transition into buying. And that's kind of leads me to my next point here is what properties am I looking for?
Okay, the sun has set in my little office here, but let's use this lighting while we still got it. When it comes to what properties that I'm looking to buy this year or this coming year, when it comes to Airbnb and kind of my long-term plan and long-term goals with Airbnb is I'm looking to continue building my portfolio through rental arbitrage. So all 12 properties that I have right now, they're operated through rental arbitrage. The cash flow is great. Everything's awesome there. But I would like to transition into buying properties. One, of course, as we just saw there, I can start building equity. I can start, having my net worth grow with these properties. And specifically, what the properties that I'm looking to acquire is I'm looking to acquire properties that are high-end luxury properties or properties that have very unique experiences on Airbnb, because when you can separate yourself among the thousands, actually millions of Airbnb hosts on the platform, you're able to charge numbers that are based not on a market like average. Like if you just have a typical 2-bedroom house and you're comparing against all the other 2-bedroom houses, like you're gonna make what those other 2-bedroom houses are making, right? When you have a unique experience on Airbnb, you're able to set prices that justify the experience. So what I'm trying to say here essentially is like you can charge higher prices when you provide a very unique experience to your guests. So that's kind of where my trajectory is at, and I'll go into in a different video kind of very uniquely what my plans are and what kind of unique experiences I'm looking to provide for my guests. But that is my kind of game plan over these next few years when it comes to my Airbnb business and my Airbnb portfolio. Now, with all of that being said, I hope that helped you get an understanding of what you want your Airbnb journey to look like, right? That was the whole point of this whole video, is so that you can figure out the best trajectory for yourself. Maybe that is starting with rental arbitrage, maybe it's starting with buying, but I just want to be here to help you make the best decision for yourself when it comes to Airbnb. All right, my friends, we'll go and wrap it up there. If you want to learn more about Airbnb, go and join our Facebook group. We're having some great discussions in there and helping other Airbnb hosts along their journey. So if you just want to have that community of Airbnb hosts to connect with or learn from other Airbnb hosts, go ahead and click the Facebook link and I'll see you in there. But until next time, thanks for watching and I'll see you later.